Hey guys, it's Raquel and today I'm doing this makeup tutorial. I just recently went out for my birthday actually to a lounge in Toronto, and I was really inspired just by the vibe in the room. Like all the girls were like dressed in like streetwear meets like chic meets like very glam. It was amazing, and it's like everyone was on the same page. I was so super inspired. I've been getting asked a lot how to get that like cut, clean, sharp liner. It's all that mixed up into one, so I hope you enjoy it. So to get this look on and poppin', I'm going to whip out my old friend, the Anastasia Beverly Hills palette, and I'm using the shade Buttery, and I'm placing this directly underneath my brows. And I do want to point out the placement of this color. It's also on the inner corners of the eye. So I'm going to take Dusty Rose now, and I'm going to place this all over the eyelids. So I'm not too worried about exactly how I'm placing it because I'm going to blend it out with a fluffy brush afterwards. So I do like a subtle contrast of the colors, so that's why I always ensure to put a matte kind of cream color right above it. So I'm going to go in with my long comb blend-in brush, and I'm gently just sweeping this across the crease of my eyelid and making sure that all the edges are well blended like I usually do. The more you blend, I promise, the better your eyeshadows will turn out, especially with this look because we're putting in effort for our look to look effortless. So I'm grabbing our Essence gel liner. I actually just picked this up from the drugstore, and I'm using my angled brush to deposit as much product as I can on the back of my hand. So I always try to minimize the product on my brush before actually placing it onto my eye. I'm gonna break it down because we're using a gel liner opposed to liquid or a pencil. I always start by creating a small line on the outer corner of my eyelid, or the outermost part of my eyelid, and I do it in a step-by-step process with a wide kind of angled brush. I also then move on to create a line in the direction of the outer tip of my brow. So it looks really random, like how does it connect, but that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to connect the end part of the tail and connect it right into the first line that we made. I end up with an empty triangle at the end, and I'll just take the product on the back of my hand and fill in that space. So if you want your liner to look more defined, then you can add a couple coats onto the line that you've already created, and it will make it look more dramatic. And if you want a pretty badass look, you can do the complete opposite and diffuse the whole line by adding black matte eyeshadow on top of the line that you created to kind of diffuse it and blend it out. My personal preference is to have the inner corners of the eyeliner very thin. If I make it too thick, I will just grab a Q-tip and work it down. So the hard part here is actually matching the two eyes. I'm sure everyone struggles with this. So I'm just going to repeat the whole process and draw my first initial line on the outer corner or outermost part of my eye. Again, I'm going to let the brush do a lot of the work for me, so I just place it down and drag it into one direction, and that's the beauty of using gel liner. So don't be afraid to try it if you haven't already. So you see that empty triangle again, I'm just going to fill it right in. So you want to make sure that you're staying within the lines that you've created for yourself and making sure that you get right down into the lash line so everything is nice and dark. So if I'm having difficulty with the angled brush on the inner corners of the eyes, I'll just cheat and grab my felt tip liquid liner because it's easy to control and just connect the whole thing together. Next, I'm grabbing my Carbon Black Voluminous Mascara from L'Oreal, and I am just going to comb them into each direction, kind of to match my falsies. I want them nice and wispy. These ones are from Ardell. They're actually called Wispy, and I debated putting on lashes, but I'm a sucker for them, so I'm just going to chop this one and basically take 1/3 off of each lash and make them into 2 small pieces and pop that on the outer corners of my eye. I'm going to move on to concealing my under eyes with the Clinique Line Smoothing Concealer in Deep Honey, and I'm going to keep most of the products underneath my eyes instead of what I usually do, which I explained in my last tutorial. I'm going to take a small concealer brush and actually trace the outer edge of my eyeliner. So this is what you do to make sure that your eyeliner is nice and sharp and it stands out. So I'm just going to collect some of that product from underneath my eyes, and then make sure I trace the outer part of that liner. And that last step or trick can actually take your liner game from like an 8 to a 10. So I always recommend to trace the edge of your liner just to make it nice and sharp and clean. I don't know what it is, but sometimes I prefer to use those cheap little triangle sponges opposed to my beauty blender. I don't know, it does the same job, but I find it makes it nice and smooth. I'm going to push that product in so it melts right into my skin, and what I'm not going to do today is actually set my makeup in with a powder. So powder will take away that dewy look and give it a nice matte finish, which usually is my go-to rule, but for today's look I want it to be very easy and effortless. I'm going to take the deepest shade in this contour palette that I got on AliExpress that cost like next to nothing, and place my contour line higher than I usually do. So instead of underneath my cheekbones, I'm going to tuck it a little bit higher and use my finger or the warmth of my finger just to blend that upwards after. And there's nothing wrong with using a clean finger on your face. The warmth of your fingertips will actually really work to blend everything together, and seriously, I prefer it sometimes over a brush. So I'm gonna work my forehead, work my nose, and just bring that straight down to make it a little bit more edgier, and then blend everything through. I never used to be the type to wear bottom lash mascara, but now I feel like it's what you need to make your eyes pop. I'm taking Kat Von D's Lolita to tie this whole look together, and that's basically a wrap on how you can get this effortless look that's still a bit glam. So I hope you enjoyed that tutorial. I cut out a bunch of steps because the whole goal was to make it like very simple and easy. So I hope you enjoyed it. Give this video a thumbs up, and I'll see you guys next time.